The halls of the Senate Judiciary Committee witnessed one of the most explosive confrontations in recent memory when Senator Adam Schiff and Attorney General Pam Bondi engaged in a heated exchange that laid bare the deep fractures in American politics. This wasn't just another routine oversight hearing. This was a battle over the soul of the Justice Department itself, with accusations flying about political prosecutions, alleged cover-ups, and the weaponization of federal law enforcement. The tension was palpable from the moment Schiff began his questioning, and what followed was a masterclass in political theater that revealed far more than either party might have intended. What really happened in that hearing room, and what does it mean for the future of justice in America? Senator Schiff opened his questioning with a somber tone, describing himself as approaching the hearing with a heavy heart. As a former federal prosecutor, he painted a picture of a Justice Department that once stood above partisan politics, regardless of which party controlled the White House. But according to Schiff, those days are gone. He pointed to the exodus of hundreds of career prosecutors who either quit or were forced out because they refused to take what he called unethical actions or feared they would be compelled to do so. Over 1,000 former federal prosecutors have signed statements warning about unprecedented abuses of power, Schiff noted. His opening wasn't just criticism, it was an indictment of the entire current leadership of the Department of Justice. The California senator then outlined what he saw as two fundamental problems plaguing the Justice Department under Bondi's leadership. First, he accused the department of covering up corrupt acts committed by the president's friends and allies. Second, he alleged that the DOJ has been weaponized to prosecute the president's political enemies. These weren't minor accusations. Schiff was essentially saying that the nation's top law enforcement agency had been transformed from an independent arbiter of justice into a political tool. He specifically mentioned cases involving the mayor of New York, a high-level administration official allegedly taking $50,000 in cash, and even a child sex predator who had befriended the president and cabinet members. Each allegation was designed to paint a picture of selective justice. The most explosive part of Schiff's questioning centered on Tom Homan, the president's top deportation official working in the White House. According to reports from 4 major media outlets, Homan allegedly took $50,000 in cash in a bag from undercover FBI agents in September 2024. The report suggested that Homan indicated he would facilitate securing contracts in exchange for money once he assumed office in the Trump administration. Schiff emphasized that this exchange was reportedly caught on tape, making it even more damaging. Yet instead of pursuing this investigation vigorously, Schiff claimed, the Justice Department and FBI quietly shut it down. When the news broke publicly, the Trump administration's response only added fuel to the fire rather than extinguishing it. What made this allegation particularly interesting was the conflicting statements from various officials. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt flatly denied that Homan took the $50,000, telling reporters they should get their facts straight. Meanwhile, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel issued statements saying there was no evidence that Homan committed a crime. But Schiff wasn't satisfied with these denials. He wanted Attorney General Bondi herself to answer directly. Did Tom Homan take the money or not? This seemed like a straightforward yes or no question, but as the hearing progressed, it became clear that straightforward answers would be in short supply. Do you think a simple question like this deserves a simple answer?
Attorney General Bondi's response to Schiff's questioning was notable not for what she said, but for what she refused to say. When pressed repeatedly about whether Homan took the money, Bondi deflected by stating she wasn't in office when the investigation was handled and therefore couldn't comment on the specifics. She pointed to statements from Deputy Attorney General Blanche and FBI Director Patel asserting there was no case against Homan. But she never actually answered whether Homan physically took the $50,000. Instead, she pivoted to defending Homan's character and service to the country, calling him someone who has been fighting for our country since Donald Trump took office. This defensive posture suggested a strategy of protection rather than transparency. The exchange grew increasingly heated when Schiff asked whether Bondi would support providing the alleged video or audio tape of Homan taking the bribe money to the committee for review. This request seemed reasonable for an oversight hearing where members of Congress are supposed to have access to information necessary to fulfill their constitutional duties. But Bondi deflected again, telling Schiff to talk to Director Patel about that. When Schiff pressed further, noting that as Attorney General, this decision would ultimately be hers, Bondi became defensive. She accused Schiff of trying to get a gotcha moment with Tom Homan and continued to praise Homan's work on border security. The question remained unanswered, leaving viewers to wonder what might be on that tape.
Throughout the hearing, Bondi repeatedly turned Schiff's questions back on him with personal attacks. She brought up the fact that Schiff had been censured by Congress, calling him a liar and suggesting that if he worked for her, he would have been fired. These weren't responses to the substance of his questions, they were attempts to discredit the questioner himself. When Schiff asked about the president receiving a $400 million gift from Qatar and whether Bondi had consulted with career ethics lawyers as she promised during her confirmation hearing, she refused to answer. When he asked about who flagged Trump's name in Epstein documents, she refused to answer. When he asked if career prosecutors found insufficient evidence to charge James Comey, she refused to answer. Senator Schiff eventually compiled a list of questions that Bondi had refused to answer during the hearing. The list was extensive and damning. She wouldn't say whether Horstman paid taxes on the alleged $50,000 bribe. She wouldn't discuss whether she had talked with the president about indicting James Comey. She wouldn't address whether she approved the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with a corporate merger. She wouldn't comment on whether she supports a restoration fund for January 6 defendants. She wouldn't clarify whether career prosecutors were being fired simply because they worked on January 6th investigations. She wouldn't even confirm whether government officials, including immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. What does it say about accountability when the nation's top law enforcement officer refuses to answer basic oversight questions? The hearing revealed a fundamental breakdown in the traditional relationship between Congress and the executive branch. Oversight hearings are supposed to be opportunities for elected representatives to ask tough questions and receive honest answers about how government agencies are operating. But this hearing descended into partisan warfare, with each side accusing the other of bad faith. Bondi accused Schiff of slandering good people and attacking the president, while Schiff accused Bondi of covering up corruption and weaponizing the Justice Department. Neither side seemed interested in finding common ground or working towards solutions. Instead, the hearing became a showcase for talking points and sound bites that would play well with each party's base. The exodus of career prosecutors from the Justice Department that Schiff mentioned is particularly troubling for anyone who values institutional stability. These aren't political appointees who come and go with each administration. These are career professionals who dedicated their lives to upholding the rule of law, regardless of which party was in power. When hundreds of these individuals decide to leave, and when over 1,000 former federal prosecutors sign statements warning about abuses of power, it suggests something deeply wrong within the institution. These professionals have seen administrations from both parties, and their alarm bells should concern every American who believes in equal justice under law. The allegations surrounding Tom Homan raise serious questions about accountability and transparency in government. If there really is video or audio evidence of a top administration official taking $50,000 in cash from FBI agents in what appears to be a bribery sting, shouldn't that evidence be examined by Congress? If the allegations are false, shouldn't the administration welcome the opportunity to clear Homan's name by releasing the evidence? The refusal to provide this information, combined with the conflicting statements from various officials, only deepens suspicions that something improper occurred. Whether those suspicions are justified or not, the lack of transparency makes it impossible for the American people to judge for themselves. The broader context of this hearing includes multiple controversies surrounding the Trump administration's use of the Justice Department. The indictment of James Comey, which Schiff mentioned, has been criticized by 1,000 former Justice Department officials as a democracy-threatening abuse of power. The firing of career officials who worked on January 6th investigations raises questions about whether the department is being purged of anyone who might investigate the president or his allies. The decision to close investigations into potentially corrupt behavior by administration officials while simultaneously pursuing cases against the president's political enemies creates an appearance of selective justice that undermines public confidence in law enforcement institutions. Attorney General Bondi's performance at this hearing will likely be analyzed and debated for months to come. Her supporters will argue that she stood firm against a hostile Democratic senator who was more interested in scoring political points than conducting genuine oversight. They'll point to her defense of career officials like Tom Homan and her pushback against what they see as unfair attacks on the Trump administration. Her critics, however, will argue that she failed the most basic test of accountability by refusing to answer legitimate oversight questions. They'll say her personal attacks on Senator Schiff were deflections designed to avoid addressing uncomfortable truths about corruption and abuse of power within the administration she leads. The hearing concluded with Senator Schiff entering several documents into the record, including statements from former Justice Department officials warning about the Comey indictment, letters from career prosecutors who were forced to leave the department, and the Justice Department manual regarding when initiating or declining charges is based on impermissible considerations. He also entered a letter from Michael Bennery, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, who warned that removing experienced career officials undermines the country's ability to fight terrorism and counter malign nation-state actors. These documents paint a picture of an institution in crisis, with experienced professionals sounding alarms that political considerations are overriding legal and ethical standards. What we witnessed in this hearing was more than just a disagreement between a Democratic senator and a Republican attorney general. It was a reflection of the deep polarization that has infected every aspect of American government, including institutions that are supposed to stand above politics. When the Justice Department becomes just another battlefield in partisan warfare, when oversight hearings become opportunities for personal attacks rather than genuine accountability, and when career professionals flee an institution they once served with pride, something fundamental has been lost. The question Americans must ask themselves is whether this is the kind of Justice Department they want, and whether either political party is truly committed to restoring its independence and integrity. Thank you so much for staying with us through this entire analysis. The confrontation between Senator Schiff and Attorney General Bondi represents far more than a heated exchange in a Senate hearing room. It's a window into the current state of American justice and political accountability. We've examined the allegations, the responses, and the broader implications for our democratic institutions. Now we want to hear from you. What's your perspective on this explosive hearing? Do you believe Attorney General Bondi should have answered Senator Schiff's questions more directly, or do you think his questioning was politically motivated? Did the allegations about Tom Homan concern you, or do you see them as unfounded attacks? Share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions in the comments section below. We read every comment and value the diverse perspectives our viewers bring to these important discussions. If you found this analysis informative and thought-provoking, please consider subscribing to our channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss our coverage of critical political developments. Your support helps us continue producing in-depth analysis of the stories that matter most to our democracy. Thank you for watching, for thinking critically, and for engaging with these complex issues. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep questioning.